Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Adam and Kenny, and today we're going to be talking about Hero, a 2002 film directed by Zhang Yimou. It stars Jet Li, Tony Leung, Maggie Cheung, Chen Daoming, Zhang Ziyi, and Donnie Yen. I don't think I really need to give this one a synopsis because I think virtually everybody's seen it. But it's basically about an assassin who's trying to kill the king of Qin, and it's sort of told in an interesting way with a series of flashbacks that are shaded with different hues, and so why don't you guys just give me your opinions on the movie before we start?
I really enjoy this movie, but I'm not sure if it's because, it's like nostalgia goggles going on here. Like, I remember watching this, I wasn't that young, it was my teens back then. Like, it was a relatively new movie back then, and I thought that the use of colors and stuff was very impressive, and the choreography, like, was really tight. I think it's top notch. Like,
well, I should say
tight,
the fight choreography is by Ching Sui Tung, who's I know he was at least one of the fight choreographers, and he did a lot of really good fight choreography in the 80s and 90s and stuff. So, but I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah, and it's like my first exposure to the story was like, oh wow, I didn't, it was sort of unexpected the way they told the story, through a flashback and then modifying it as you go along. So you have to build up the picture of the story in your head as the movie goes along. Like it's sort of strange because you're given like a version of the story and then it changes as it goes, as opposed to regular structures where you pick up bits of the movie as you go along.
Yeah, I gotta say, as I'm the new guy on the podcast who's just been getting into the genre, and this has been my introduction. This is one of the few movies I'd actually seen before I started doing this podcast, and I enjoyed it a lot the first time I saw it, and I'd say, having seen it, with more context to it and having a deeper understanding, it made it even more enjoyable. And I don't have the nostalgia issue of this being something I saw years ago, so I just think it's a very solid movie.
Yeah, I think I have a similar feeling that Kenny does, in that it brings me back to a very specific time and place when I see this movie. But I have to admit, when I first saw this film, when I first my girlfriend at the time saw it on DVD or probably maybe even VHS. I don't know. I mean, it was probably DVD, but we rented it and saw it, and I remember falling asleep. And so for years I was like, oh, Hero, that's a boring movie. And then when I started working on Wandering Heroes of Ogregate, Dan, who's the co-designer, loved Hero, and he was like, I think that you were just really sleepy the night that you watched Hero. Why don't you watch it again? And so I watched it again, and that turned out to be true. I found, or my opinion of it just radically changed in the intervening years, but I found that I liked it a lot more when I watched it, and I wasn't, half asleep or something. So, so again, I like Hero. I still think it's a bit slow. So I have probably still kind of I think my opinion is not with most people I've talked to on it. But I think it's undeniably a gorgeous movie, and it's undeniably a very compelling film. And I think that the way that it's shot is incredibly striking. But yeah, so I don't know. But that that was my thought on the movie, at least. So
yeah, I know what you're saying about the pacing. I mean, I like the pacing, but I was thinking while I was watching it, this viewing, I was thinking about it compared to, like, when I first got into watching these movies with you, I was really amazed at how much plot most of these movies have packed into them. There's like a typical Shaw Brothers movie is just bursting with plot, and this is just very sedate. I mean, I don't know if I want to pick this as a introductory movie to the genre for people, because it is much more deliberately paced.
Well, and I can tell you when I fell asleep. I fell asleep in the blue scene in the scroll room. That's the scene I remember. I'm very aware of that scene being on in the background as I was falling asleep. But I think also it's the kind of movie at that time. I remember I had watched a lot of movies that were sort of shot like not with the coloring style, but in that with that pacing and that kind of music over the course of the 90s. And so I think by that point I was maybe just more interested in things that were faster paced. But I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed it this time. I really, I had fun watching it, and I think it's a beautiful movie. I definitely have changed my opinion on it, but I can't deny I fell asleep the first time I watched it. That's sort of a, it's something that I have to own up to.
And I think, just to pick up on the point that I mentioned about the plot or the compared to other wuxia movies, like I wouldn't really classify Hero as a wuxia movie. Like this is just my opinion. I know that there's lots of debate on like what classifies as wuxia or not, but because it's not necessary for them to build a world in this case, and there's no need to have like a wide cast of people to support the story, it doesn't seem necessary to have to engage everyone. They don't have to try and fit. How many women were there in that movie we watched? Like 20 women generals.
Oh, the 14 Amazons?
14 Amazons, that's the one. It's not necessary to have all of them doing something, and the ties between them and the relationships between the people. We have like, was it 6 people in this movie basically who had a big role? So it can feel like there's not much by the way of plot or the depth of the world, but it doesn't seem necessary because this isn't the focus on this one. It's like between just those people and very little about the world around them.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's I guess I would still tend to think of this as a wuxia movie, but it's interesting that you say that because that is kind. I mean, it does feel different. It definitely does. It doesn't feel like a lot of other wuxia movies do. It's kind of. I mean, if I had to sort of like, compare it to things, I'd say it's like a cross between Ashes of Time and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's got sort of a, it's got an artsy feel to it, but it also does a lot of what Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon did with the lightness kung fu, the way that it was used in that movie, where it was very slow and kind of, I don't know what the word would be, almost like liberating when you see people take off, you sort of feel your spirit lift up. So I feel like there was a lot of that going on here. But what is it about it that you feel makes it not feel like wuxia to you?
I mean, I guess like it sort of has the essence there. I mean, it has the hero kind of, the assassin in this case, Nameless, and he does lightness kung fu, he has martial arts, he talks to people from around the world, he has friends and they all help him to try and accomplish a common goal type of thing. But it feels like this movie is more about the flashiness, like the visual impact rather than the story. Like the story takes a second place to me because when I look at this movie, I watch it to enjoy the blend of colors, the acting from the people, and and the brilliant choreography. Like I mentioned, like I really enjoy the fight scenes in this one because everything just seems so tight and they're very well practiced. Like if you slow down some of the fight scenes, like everything is very precise and there aren't any sort of wasted motions where it's not done for the sake of making it look flashy. It feels like it's part of a fight, and sure, it's fanciful, but it felt impactful to me in that sense.
Yeah, I would say along that line that it feels like it's taking place in the universe that a wuxia movie takes place in, but it's plot-wise conventions, it's not the same kind of story. So it's like I said, you have the same kind of characters, those abilities and things, but the plot structure does feel. I think it is, genre. It's kind of the difference between genre and setting, I suppose. It's the same setting, but not quite the same genre.
And I think another thing for me then is also that the level of characters involved. So we're talking at emperors and country level here, and wuxia to me never really means like that sort of top level character. Like it's about the common folk type of people. Like they're the commoners, the people who roam the realms and doing their own thing. And when you get to sort of assassinating emperors and stuff, and where it's a entire focus of the movie, then it sort of brings it out of perspective for me a little bit. I mean,
but see, I don't know. I feel like Assassinating the Emperor feels wuxia to me. Like I think of like The Assassin, the movie that Adam mentioned, it sort of reminding him of. That feels like a wuxia movie to me, but I for this one I do kind of agree with you in that I think that it looks and feels way different than most other wuxia movies, and I think if I'm not sure, I'd have to think about it, but I think what I feel when I watch this is I feel a lot more like I feel when I'm watching a period piece, like a period drama set in like the ancient world, and so it has more of that feel to me, and the wuxia stuff just happens to be there as well, but it's not as, I don't know. There is something different about Hero, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd draw like a similarity, like a parallel between Hero and Red Cliff. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah, Red Cliff's a good example of what I mean. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a period piece. Like it's set in a historical point in time here. The Emperor of Qin is, a natural person, of course, and he had countless assassins arguing after him, and they probably picked one of them and just glorified, his achievements there. And I severely doubt that two people could storm the palace of the of the emperor, or not the emperor at that point, the king of Qin.
But that's why it feels wuxia to me, because they're mowing down people like lawnmowers, but
maybe that's like because it doesn't feel like there's any risk to them as a character. Like you sort of look at them as like level 99 characters in the game trying to storm through, whereas in the wuxia, everything feels much more real and there's a tangible risk of death. And in this case, they only die when they're faced by an equivalent opponent, or what was that, like 300 archers, basically.
But to me that's wuxia, because that's like I mean, and obviously Shaw Brothers tends to be much more gritty, but like but like the Condor Heroes, that was like the whole thing we were talking about with Condor Heroes, where it's like one guy equals like 120 or something, and like that feels wuxia to me, but I agree with you about the Red Cliff comparison.
The journey, like I don't know, it's just I think there's something lacking from the journey from beginning to end here that doesn't make it quite wuxia. Like if it was like if it had included more bits about like the 10 years that he spent training the sword, and I feel like that would have made it more wuxia for me, if that makes sense. Like the fact that we just sort of picked up at this point where everything is already done, and it's just like this is like the climax of a wuxia novel. A wuxia story, rather. Sorry. This would be the climax, and then we're sort of missing the beginning parts that would have made it more wuxia for me.
Well, what I think it does feel like to me is it feels like a wuxia movie made by somebody who'd rather be making a period film, like a Red Cliff type movie. Do you know what I mean? Like that's I feel like I kind of get what, like I kind of have a similar feeling to you, but I'm reluctant to sort of jettison the wuxia label.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you say it's someone who'd rather be doing something else, though, I mean, there is so much care put into the martial arts and stuff in this. So I almost feel like it's like. It seems like there's still some degree of caring for that, but I don't know. It's tough.
I mean the fight choreography is very well done. They obviously the director was interested in that. What I just mean is I feel like there's something very stately about the way the whole movie is shot, and it just feels different than like a lot of wuxia movie. It feels like it's shot more like a like something like Red Cliff or. The other movie that is based on something on the same source material, The Emperor and the Assassin, which I haven't seen in ages, but it's like the same basic story, and it's a little bit more faithful to the original material.
Yeah, and I won't disagree. I won't argue with anyone who claims that this is wuxia. Like this is just I can tell it's a nitpicking on my part, and it's just a personal opinion. It just doesn't. To me, it lacks something, but I can't definitely put my finger on on what it is. Like a whole lot of different little things that add together to me, which pulls it out of the wuxia ballpark a little bit.
Well, I will say this to you. I definitely think there is a certain something in this movie that is. That feels different, for sure, than most of the other wuxia movies that I've seen, and I think we could probably get into some of those things as well. I would be interested when we do get to House of Flying Daggers, where people stand on that, because I feel like that feels way more like a wuxia movie. And so anyways, in terms of things that are different, one thing that I was sort of wondering about is there's like an awful lot of stoicism in this movie, like a lot of scenes where people are just blank or not revealing what they're thinking on their face. And I'm curious, I don't know, why people thought that might have been.
Yeah, we definitely have the Emperor and Nameless are playing a poker game against each other for a good chunk of the movie. But yeah, well, it's interesting because there is a lot of. I was thinking about that actually watching it, because on the one hand, people are being very stone-faced, but I feel like the acting's good enough that people have these kind of blank expressions, but there's still like a lot of emotion coming off them. You can kind of feel the emotion that they're holding back.
And they do bubble to the surface periodically. You do get the emotions coming to the surface, but I mean it's a lot more. It's just a lot more stoic than a lot of other movies. And you take an actress like Maggie Cheung, who we saw in Dragon Inn recently, and she's usually so animated, and then to have her, basically either sad or just kind of not revealing what she's thinking is, it's a very, there's like a very stone cold look to a lot of the characters through the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wonder if that's just because like the way the characters are written. Yeah, that they're all assassins. They're people who have basically thrown away their life for one particular goal, and they're sort of accepted. That life it is what it is. And there's no point like being too excited about anything because everything can end at any moment. I don't know. It just but they all seemed a bit depressed to me actually.
Well, I also was wondering maybe that's the way of signifying this is occurring in a much earlier time somehow. Like people are acting a lot more with like a lot more guardedly about their emotions. But I don't know.
But I have to say that even though their faces are very stoic, like I feel like the body language of all the or the actors did a ton to sort of convey their not necessarily their thoughts, but just how they're feeling. It comes across from the way they move their bodies and the way they hold themselves very well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that a lot. Like I mean, I'm looking at the scene right now where Tony Leung decides to sleep with his disciple to sort of get back at flying snow, and like he's not, there's really not a whole lot of emotion on his face, but the way that he's postured, you can tell sort of what the character is feeling.
That's interesting too, because that's just the cover story, not a scene that actually occurs.
Well, that's something that I was trying. So when I was watching it, and I didn't pay close enough attention on my additional viewings to sort of crack this, but I was wondering maybe as the story gets more true, the characters become more like real people, and in the earlier stories they're more stone-faced because this is the assassin trying to describe something that didn't happen. And it's sort of like if you've ever had to tell like a kid like a story, and you didn't have the energy to do it, like, it's just that kind of, I thought maybe that's what it was. But
that next time I watch it, I'm going to have to think about the acting style in each story and each version of the story and see if it evolves in some way, because that's an interesting theory.
Yeah, I wasn't able to really confirm or reject it.
Yeah.
Because I just found myself forgetting to pay attention to that detail.
I meant to pay attention to the colors specifically this viewing. I'm like, I'm going to think about the colors the whole movie, and I got about like a third of the way, and I just didn't think about the color. I mean, I obviously appreciated them, but I just kind of got into the movie, and I that level of analysis just fell away from me.
And a quick plug for the theme of of April is colors in movies.
I know, and I dropped the ball, but
But no, and that's, I mean, obviously that's one of the reasons why we're doing this one. But I mean, we should talk about the colors, I suppose. That's obviously the most. It's the most obvious thing about the film when you see it is the use of color.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to get too deep because I know you can really go down a rabbit hole talking about the meanings of the colors. But just in general, you know, like, I mean, it was bold, you know, having everybody dress in red and having red-hued scenes for that one section, then having, you know, the blue and then the green, and I think there was a white sequence before that. And it's kind of, I feel like the scenes with the Emperor kind of have a black tone to them. Like that seems to be the... So,
and I do want to say, sort of regarding the colors there, despite the fact that, but the way the characters dress in the background tend to be very similarly shaded, like it's never really unclear, like where the actor and their costume begins and where the background ends. So there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot of conscious thought put into that to make sure that it's still viewable to the audience, as opposed to just being done to make a statement or convey a particular type of emotion.
well, I think. Oh, go ahead, Adam.
No, I wasn't about to cut in there. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that I know that they Christopher Doyle was the cinematographer they brought in for this one specifically because of his use of color, and I think I remember him saying something about that where, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but I don't know. I think with the colors, it is interesting that you can always sort of tell what the overall color tone is, and you can always keep track of individual characters within that color tone. Nobody ever gets lost in the mix. But I think
I think there's a lot of stark shadows in the lighting. I think is part of it too. It's like, if you have the characters kind of starkly lit, you kind of have the shadows make them stand out.
Well, and I think they did use a lot of contrast too. Like I think they would do like in the scene where they're fighting in the fall background.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're dressed in red, but the leaves are all yellow. And and I think even in the blue scene, I feel like there was enough contrast between the blue and other shades that you were seeing things very clearly. But yeah, I don't know. I think with the colors, I don't know. It just I mean I know that it's sort of that a lot of it has to do. It's not really. I mean, people say it's points of view, but I don't think that's really what it is.
No,
because one of them's a blatant lie. The red story is just a blatant fabrication. And
this isn't Rashomon. They're trying to apply Rashomon to this movie, and that's a whole different thing.
And
I do actually think there was some choice there, because I feel like the red the red theme comes during the point where Nameless is trying to portray Broken Sword and Snow, what's her name again?
Flying Snow.
Flying Snow as sort of like as emotional people. Like red is sort of the color of emotion, right? And then when the Emperor's talking about it, it goes to blue, and blue is sort of like the cold color of logic. And this is him sort of using his thought process, or based on what he knows of the characters and his understanding of how people act. And I'm not sure what the other colors mean, but I haven't gotten quite that far yet. But it's just
I think you're right. I mean, I think the colors totally match what's going on in the scene. All I was saying is I just don't think that the colors represent points of view so much as something else about what's going on. If it was simple point of view, then the red scene would have been true in a certain sense, but it really wasn't. It was him making up that story, and then the Emperor's blue was sort of his attempt to sort of figure out and analyze what had happened and speculate, and I feel like the scene with the white was sort of more like what really happened, and then the green is kind of like, I don't know, it's like I guess they're all flashback scenes, but it's the scene where Broken Sword sort of has his big revelation. Huh?
Revelations or turning points
Yeah.
in history, where if he had made a different choice at that point, then the entire outcome of the history of China would be different. And
So, so I guess here's a question I had about that is the the thing that makes Broken Sword decide that the King of Qin cannot be killed is his mastery of calligraphy. He masters calligraphy. We see him get facial hair, so we know time has elapsed. As he's, and he and he decides after he's examined, the art of calligraphy that the King of Qin shouldn't be killed. And I'm thinking that connects to what the king said about the 20 variations on a single character in calligraphy. And how that's really confusing. I'll be sure to get rid of that when I.
Yeah, that was a really a good point that leads into the ending too. That he's thinking about. I mean, what his motivations are to unite everything, and he's not. I mean, obviously he is trying to conquer everyone, but it's as much just because so everything is unified. He has this grand vision. That was a nice way of revealing that in the story.
yeah, I do wonder if the sort of calligraphy part was there's also there was the point that there's 20 different types of ways of writing one character, and through combinations and permutations you could have thousands of ways of writing the same letter to someone basically. But there's another point where I think maybe the study of calligraphy involves a lot of education, reading, and traditionally speaking, people in martial arts movies or wuxia movies, they tend to be martial artists, and they dedicate their life to the sword. This guy spent 10 years to perfect his 10-step one kill technique, basically, right? As opposed to studying the book and reflecting upon themselves and on the world as a whole, which is generally for what scholars and the officials are expected to do, whereas the people. The martial artists are expected to be generals in the army and that sort of stuff.
He's kind of taking a Peach Blossom Island approach to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think maybe it's because he's had a chance to study so many different types of writing and he's read so much that he understands that obviously the Qin Kingdom is now is basically unstoppable. It's only a matter of time until they can conquer the rest of China, and unify under one rule. And under one rule it would be better for everyone rather than trying to, fight for the pride of his own country or for the vengeance of his lover. All of that pales in comparison. So I think the calligraphy part isn't just about the writing itself. I think the education part is really important as well.
Well, that's an interesting part too, because there was a movie called I think it was called For Love of a Terracotta Warrior that I think Zhang Yimou starred in. I think he was the star. He wasn't the director. I think it was actually directed by Ching Sui Tung. But let me just double check that because I do want to. Yeah, it was Zhang Yimou was the star in it, and Gong Li was the co-star, and Ching Sui Tung was the director, and so they're both involved in this project, and that's about the same. At least in the opening, it's about the same king. It's set during the period of the same king, and one of the things, if I remember, that happens in it is they have this whole thing where the officials are destroying books and they're arresting people who have illegal books because they're trying to sort of codify the language and codify knowledge. And so it's interesting to sort of see that strikingly different depiction of the king in the hands of the same people.
Well, it's funny because it's only through sort of, and I think it's actually sort of debunked that the Qin Emperor burned all the books and buried 10,000 scholars or whatever the anecdotes say. But it does seem fairly likely that he had to eradicate most schools, other schools of thought, in order to unify the language and and the processes across the entirety of China. So I don't know. It doesn't. It's not out of I think it's probably it's the characters are in line still there, I'd say, in their actions.
Okay, no, I think I think what's different is the way that the way that it's presented to the viewer. Whereas in Terracotta Warrior, we're sort of seeing it from the point of view of people who are on the receiving end of this change,
Right.
and in this movie, we're seeing it from the point of view of the Chin King, who, he's sort of like the way he's presented here is almost like a lonely, misunderstood man who is the only person in the world who understands him is the person that's trying to kill him. And his only, you almost get the impression that his only real friends are his assassins. It's a very sympathetic portrayal. But go ahead.
I was thinking, yeah, that definitely sort of ties into the so-called political undertones we were talking about before the podcast. Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah, no. So that was just, I just thought that was, and it does. I think I agree with you. It gets into the political stuff, where and this movie is one of those films that, it's often viewed through the prism of recent history, and there's a lot of questions about what it means politically. I don't know that I'm qualified to weigh in there, but what I would say is I think if you look at all, because this is really part of a series of films. There's this movie. There's House of Flying Daggers, and there's Curse of the Golden Flower. And I think when you see those in totality, if you are going to do a political reading, it's better to do it, over the course of those three films than just with this one film as sort of the final message. But I don't know. We should probably get to the fights before we forget, because we've gone 30 minutes and we haven't even talked about the fight scenes, except in passing. So I don't know. Why don't starting with Kenny? What's your favorite fight scene in the movie?
It would have to be the fight with Sky, actually, in the beginning of the movie. Like, I don't know, just something about that fight scene just felt like the spear movements were mesmerizing. Like, I was just like, I rewound that and watched it again just because I was amazed at how they managed to interplay a sword and spear fight so well. That's not to say that the other fight scenes in the movie were bad. It's just like that was the one that stuck out to me in particular. Like the whole raindrop thing and the sort of slow motion and the sort of mind battle they were going through, and the music in the background really helped as well. The tempo of the zither or Gushin or whatever it was, played by the blind man. And I just thought that was that fight scene for me was definitely like one of the highlights in the movie.
Yeah, I have to agree that was my favorite as well. It's just an amazing fight scene, and oddly I found the one that I'd say my second favorite, just to throw another one out there. I actually really like the fight scene with Flying Snow and Broken Sword's disciple, who I don't know if she had a name.
Moon, I think her name was.
Moon. Oh, okay, I never caught her name, but I know that one I found very engaging too. I mean, and that was particularly impressive for the setting and everything too.
That's one of the most memorable scenes in the movie, I think, for sure. And I definitely would not argue with you guys. I think that the fight with Sky, I think because it's Donnie Yen and Jet Li, it's a classic matchup, and they're the choreography is good, and also like all of the themes of the movie are kind of present in that scene. So one thing I like about it is the sheath on the spear. I don't know why, but something about that is different. I mean, I'm sure I've seen sheaths on spears in movies before, but this is the first time I really felt myself observing it and noticing it, and the way it was used. And like, sound is really important in this movie, and something about the thump that spear made when he hit people with it when it had the sheath on was just gratifying. I don't know why. But yeah, I don't know. And I liked the whole thing with like the chess being played and the music, and them talking about how, the fighting was sort of similar to music and presumably similar to chess. And then, you can sort of extend that to calligraphy when they get there later in the movie. So I think it all kind of worked together. But
it's funny because the four arts of China are what chess, the Guqian, calligraphy, and painting. But painting is the one that hasn't really shown up in this movie. Am I? Or was it that I missed that?
I don't remember painting being in the
I
film.
did not see any painting going on. Yeah.
We definitely saw calligraphy.
Yeah, calligraphy, chess, and music is what all sort of had an appearance, but painting was the one that was missing from this one.
Hmm.
But
I don't know. I guess we could say the color design of the movie was the painting.
oh, the movie itself is the painting.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's the four ancient arts of China in one movie.
And the other fight scene too is the green fight scene in the audience chamber was pretty cool. I thought it had I liked watching them just mow down guys to get to the audience chamber, and then
Yeah.
They were cutting through shields like it was nothing.
But that was so enjoyable. That was they were that. But that was the thing that that's an important thing to convey in the film though, because I like one of the key details is that Nameless can't do that. He has to get the audience where he can be 10 paces in there. And so that's why it's significant from the emperor's or the king's point of view that these other characters were willing to work with him and fake their deaths or in his mind actually die when they would have been better, like a better strategy on the surface would have been to have them two go in and do that and clear the way, and then have him come in with his super technique and kill the king. But
well, I think we already established that Broken Sword would be unwilling to take part in that adventure. So
no, that's true. That's true.
So I think the it wasn't necessary that he couldn't mow his way through all the troops, but it was a riskier approach, and that the safest way, is that he knows that he can kill him within 10 steps. So as long as he can get there, it's a surefire bet as opposed to fighting his way through hordes of people and then having a short window of time to try and assassinate the emperor, who's alert to the assassination. Now, the emperor, obviously he was inferior to Broken Sword when they were fighting. But he's no slouch of a sword himself, if he can hold his ground for 20, 30 seconds, the entire of the army could have charged in
And in the real records of the historian account, the guy that he's kind of based on, who failed, but he actually did try to attack the emperor with a hidden dagger in the in I think it was some kind of map scroll, and the emperor kind of managed to fend him off, but he was I think he was bumbling with his scabbard, and then the court physician came in and cracked him with the medicine bag or something. It was almost comedic the way it was described it was very different from what we see here. A lot less noble sounding.
The Broken Sword Emperor scene though, with their fight. One thing I like about that is just the falling curtains. The way it gives a perception of how fast it goes. Because when it's there, and the amount of time the movie takes is a long time between the cutting of the curtains and when they actually hit the ground. And you kind of see them hit the ground. You're like, whoa! It was just a great way to show the speed that they're actually moving at, rather than the speed we're seeing them.
Well, that's what I liked about that scene was I liked the green contrasted with that gray stone. It just really created an atmosphere, and also seeing that the king was proficient, that he was capable of fighting, and that he was an energetic person. He wasn't just some tired. He was moving pretty briskly. So. What did you guys think of the Lake Pavilion fight scene? The one that the king thought was them just going through the motions.
That was sort of classic wuxia fight scene, I think. It's the whole skipping on water thing, and then using the buoyancy of a sword striking water to bounce yourself back up. That's all fantastic. And I guess it's because this is the emperor, not the emperor, the king at that point. So I keep saying he's the emperor because he eventually becomes the emperor. So it's somewhat the king is sort of envisioning, two top class swordsmen fighting. They must be dancing on water, blades flying, and
yeah.
Well, I love how he's painting all of his foes as these really admirable people. And he's saying you guys were honor bound to fight, so you must have done so, but you were just going through the motions, which is sort of the perfect way that you would imagine it happening if you admired both of them. And even like the love story, like when he tells the love story, his version of it is that they're both very much in love. It's like like there's tragedy in there, but it's essentially an unbroken love story. And so I kind of like that the king is just building up all of these people that are his assassins when he's able to characterize them.
Well, when you think about it, he is kind of an idealist. It's like he wants to create this united kingdom. He wants to fix the alphabet so that there's like just a single letter for everything. And it's like, it does kind of fit with his worldview. It's like he's this guy who's going to fix the world and make it perfect.
Now, the one thing I always remember about this movie are the court officials. And they look really striking. Like they look, to me, they kind of look like insects, the way that they're depicted. Like they're just sort of like there's something very unattractive about all the court officials. And I don't know if that's just me or if other people feel that they're sort of presented that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just whenever we hear them kind of calling out and stuff too, it's like they just, I don't know, it's just there's just kind of this negative viewpoint to them overall. Like, at the end when they're calling for the execution and that kind of thing. I don't know. They just seem like, no, it adds to the part of the emperor being lonely. It's like these are the people he has around him all the time, and they're just these nothings.
They're shadows that scream in unison, and
yeah. It's funny because you mentioned insects, but it does seem like they have a hive mind, because I don't think it'd be possible for a group of 100 people to simultaneously realize what the perfect phrase to shout at the king would be at that moment in time, and do it in unison. So, it feels like they're all sort of pandering to him, and maybe like you mentioned about the whole loneliness thing. It sort of makes sense that these are people who serve him. They're not people that he can treat as friends and equals, and they exist only to serve his will.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, they're giving him really grim advice. We're going to spoil the ending, which I'm sure everybody's seen anyways, but we have to talk about it. They say, execute him. He cannot be trusted. Execute him. And it's at the end of the movie when Nameless decides not to kill the emperor and sort of walk away, he then turns around and faces the king, against the gate, and the soldiers have their bows drawn, and the court officials are the ones advising the king to have him killed. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I guess number one, the king's decision, but also the way that things end in the movie.
It felt appropriate to me. I actually was quite impressed at the fact that he managed to, sort of die standing, I guess. Like, all those arrows pierced his body, but he didn't get, pushed back into the door and impaled there. He managed to have a hero's death, as it were. And when they buried him, did they, take the time? Obviously, there was a lot of arrows being fired there, and you can tell from the density of the arrows on the wall, he should have been a human porcupine.
Yeah. So
someone must have spent time and effort, in terms of the story here, plucking these arrows out of his body so that they can be carried out and buried.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that jumped out at me. But I don't know, I felt like it was appropriate because, the Qin emperor was known for being, I think, was he the person who sort of advocated for rule of law? Basically the saying that I usually hear is, if a king commits a crime, then he'll be punished the same as commoners will be. Although probably with a bit of liberties taken as to what defines a crime for a monarch. The fact that Nameless tried to assassinate the king, was obviously in violation of the laws, and he had to punish him in adherence to the laws. Otherwise, he would be a hypocrite, and that would wouldn't necessarily. Well, I don't know. I do think it would shape the foundations of his country and his convictions, as it were. If he can't, stick to his own rules, then he wouldn't have been able to be the person who united all the countries under one banner, type of thing.
Yeah, the ending felt pretty inevitable to me. I can't think of any other way the movie could have ended and have been satisfying. It just had to happen that way.
Yeah, I remember when I first saw it without falling asleep, and I saw the shape of his body in the wall with the arrows. I had a
Yeah.
vague hope that they were just so precise that they fired all around, and then
They showed the
yeah,
archer showed mercy. It
yeah,
was
yeah.
respect there.
But but yeah, I agree. I think it had to end the way it ended. There really isn't another way to end the movie. But what about with the Flying Snow and Broken Sword characters? Because they also sort of meet an unhappy ending as well. Slightly different, means, but um,
I don't know. That one is a debatable sort of ending for them. Like, I can sort of understand the viewpoints of the characters there, and that Flying Snow has wanted revenge against the Qin Emperor for so long. It's been her sole motivation. Whereas for Broken Sword, his only motivation was to accompany Flying Snow through her journey. Like he didn't really have. Well, that's not true. Like he was a person of the Zhao kingdom, so he had some sort of stake in the matter with being a national of Zhao, and the Qin
Wasn't looking
being.
to avenge his father like she was. Yeah.
Yeah,
she
yeah.
was
So
definitely more bent on that than him by that point in the movie. He had let that go for sure.
yeah, and it's a fitting ending for them as well because he sort of knows that she won't be able to be happy now because he can't give her what she truly desires, which is like the assassination of the Qin Emperor and vengeance for her father, and then they can both retire to their idyllic place where there are no swords and only a man and a woman. I think the quote was. um, I don't know. For me, it's it fits in with the theme of the movie, and that people die for their ideals and people make sacrifices and such. Like, but the way they committed, the way that Flying Snow committed suicide was a bit odd. Just pushing the sword through his body into herself after he was dead. It was just a bit.
Yeah. It's it's a little weird because those are the characters we keep seeing different versions of too. So it's like I felt a little disconnected from them just because we gone through these multiple versions of their story already. But
That is true. That they're very like in one of them. She's had an affair with Sky, and and he has sex with Moon, and they're. I mean, they're like it's like the ultimate sort of unhappy marriage type situation. Where they're
yeah,
both trying to sort of get at each other, and in the the King's version is the best one for them in terms of they're genuinely in love, and there's really not a situation that's a problem, but the reality is I guess the more complicated love story because it's kind of there's they're splintered by a difference of opinion. I guess
yeah,
is the thing that really,
yeah,
which is I guess I don't know, that could be worse or not as bad as I don't know. It depends on your point of view, I suppose.
yeah.
But,
And
oh, what were you gonna say,
Moon,
Kenny?
I know. I was just saying, like, it's funny because like she keeps repeating, "Why didn't you block my sword?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, no." It's like, "Well, what's going to happen? Like, even if you did block your sword, are you going to keep fighting until you're exhausted, and then everything's going to be
Well,
fine? You're not going to have an issue anymore."
I think they were locked in a cycle where she didn't want to kill him. She just wanted to vent her anger at him, but she was never gonna relinquish that anger. It was just gonna be this sort of they would have these clashes, and he kind of put an end to it by letting her strike him. But that also was sort of he was trying to because I think at the end she said something like you you only have this idea of the unified kingdom in your heart, not me. And he says I have both in my heart, and so again it was sort of love versus the state, I suppose. I don't know. It was. I'm not
It
sure if it
feels
was
like one of those questions that, within the relationship, like one person asks the other like a trick question, or just to get a rise out of them type of thing, just to see how they would react. And this is just like when that sort of thing goes too far, and one of them ends up stabbing them in the gut.
I guess so. Well, and again, these are assassins. These are people that are trained to kill, and they live a life of killing. And so, I guess it makes sense that something would get taken that far with them. If you're playing around with swords like that, eventually somebody's going to get stabbed. And so, I don't know. Is there anything else we haven't talked about in the movie? I feel like we covered a lot, but I don't want to overlook anything important.
No, I think we do. I don't know. We talked about most of the important things. I mean, what do you guys think about the structure of the story? I guess like the fact that we were given a version of the story in its entirety to start, and then have it change throughout the course of the movie.
I mean, I think it worked because it keeps you interested. You don't feel like you're watching the same thing over and over again. So it's not redundant. It's not like overly repetitive, even though they're going over similar material. And again, I think it would have been more annoying if it was actual different points of view being told, rather than this is a lie, this is the king trying to figure it out, and then this is kind of what happened. If it was literally points of view, then where they had to kind of do the same thing over and over and over again, then it might have been. I don't know. I do tend to get more annoyed at that as a viewer.
And we did talk about the pacing, but how do you think this would compare to, say, a King Hu movie in terms of how slow it feels?
I think this is more languid than a King Hu movie.
Okay.
Because this has the this feels like I remember in the 90s watching a lot of foreign movies that felt like this. Not just Chinese movies, but like French movies and there was like a style that seemed to be in the air with movies that were going to various film festivals, and this kind of matches that style in my opinion. It's got that sort of like it's not as extreme as those. It's definitely made for a bigger audience, but the way that the music has a sense of weight to it. It like pulls you down, and everything feels heavy and slow. And in a King Hu movie, he just is taking his time telling but there are these punchy moments in it. It's just a very different vibe. I guess the only one that I would compare it to is maybe A Touch of Zen. But even then I feel like it's different because I feel like things are explained a little more concretely, and there's something more amorphous about this movie to me. I don't know. What do you think, Adam?
Well, I've only seen one King Hu movie, so based on that though, the Dragon Inn one, I would say the Dragon Inn one was definitely faster paced than this. I mean, well, it's just the sense of it. It just has. I mean, I think we talked how it felt a lot like a Western and so on. I mean, it just has that feeling of momentum in a way and building towards something. Whereas this is kind of deconstructing a story, so it just doesn't feel like the same kind of thing at all.
Yeah, Dragon Inn was slow the way The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is slow.
Yeah,
that's a good. This was slow the way, like, watching something that wouldn't normally be a movie is slow. Do you know what I mean? Like it's hard to. It just sort of feels like there are a lot of scenes where you're kind of looking at the curtains. Do you know what I mean? In this movie, like that's kind of how I would describe it. Like you were saying, Kenny, like you watch this to see the colors, to see the, I mean, with King Hu, you do that. You watch to see the visual sort of. There is like there's kind of like a degree of painting going on, but I think there's also there's a little bit more like of a Western vibe with that stuff. But I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to probably watch Touch of Zen again to really,
Side by side.
Yeah. But I guess the other thing is, what about the CGI? Because that was one of the things I was wondering going in. Is it's been quite a few years since this came out, and CGI is one of those things that you tend to notice when it's been a long time. Do you feel that the CGI held up? Did any of the CGI fall down just because of the period that it was made?
The arrows were. I guess there was just so many of them. It wasn't feasible for them to be like entirely realistic. So some of the bodies of arrows were quite sketchy, I'd say.
Yeah, they were the only time in the movie I thought about CGI. Other than that, I just was just kind of watching the movie. But yeah, it definitely entered my brain that those things were computer animated objects on the screen.
The time that it kind of bothered me was when Jet Li went through the water droplets, and the water droplets looked very computer generated.
Oh yeah,
that was the one time. Like the arrows, I noticed too, but I could kind of like the arrows, I could sort of accept, but the water droplets, I just couldn't. I couldn't in any way accept them.
Yeah, I was fine. I recognized with the water droplets, but I was enough in the moment that it didn't get me. But yeah, the arrows. Yeah, so I know what you're saying.
But yeah, so I don't know. I think that's everything. I should mention.
There's one thing I wanted to talk about, or at least mention. Just like an honorable shout out to the calligraphy teacher guy, who was like writing in the midst of that arrow storm. Like that guy is pretty badass.
That was a very cool scene. That was it was a kind of sort of they may take our lives sort of scene where our what did he say? They could destroy our cities, but they won't be able to destroy our writing or our last.
It's
ironic because they did destroy the writing.
Oh, I know. I was thinking that, but yeah, I was like, today you'll learn the true value of calligraphy. Until you've died and left something behind, you aren't a true calligrapher.
But what's also funny about that scene is that is the lie. That is the scene that didn't happen.
Oh yeah. Who's that was the original.
That was the red
person.
Scene. Yeah, that was the red scene.
Yeah, yeah.
That scene, it's not just him. It's all the students are going. They're all sort of sitting there. They're doing their calligraphy, and the arrows are raining down, and they're getting stabbed, and they're getting pierced by the arrows, and
that gave the emperor the idea. He's going, and then he said, "They can never destroy our books." And the emperor's thinking, "Oh, I bet I could."
Yeah, all this talk of this calligraphy school is giving me an idea. But yeah. Oh, the other thing I did want to say is on the DVD version I have, which is I think it's the one that Miramax put out quite some time ago. But it's like the metal canister version. The dubs on that one are actually quite good. The dubs, I don't know for sure because I wasn't able to figure out. I couldn't find like a casting list of who recorded the dubs. I think a lot of the actors from the original movie recorded their characters in English. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it seemed like it. And I thought that it was one of the better dubs I'd heard. The subtitles are good too, but this is one where I would say I think the dub is actually pretty good. So yeah,
actually that's a good one thing about the subtitle translations is the word that Broken Sky, the two characters that he writes for Nameless, like it's Tiansha, which is like all under heaven, which is translated as our land, and I'm not really sure that that's like. I think I've spoken about this to other people in the past when we talk about this movie. It's like our land is like a really weird way to translate it.
It seems like in a very American way. It's like a
yeah. It's very propaganda-y.
Well, I know there was a lot of controversy around that translation. I guess the challenge is in that year, Tian Sha probably didn't have a whole lot of meaning in English-speaking countries, so that would have been the difficulty. But I suppose they could have added in some explanation in the subtitle, like in parentheses, and it would have been fine. So But yeah, I feel like our land doesn't really capture the range of
Of
Tian
Tian
Sha.
Sha. Yeah.
It's because it is kind of, because I remember when when you see it and there's that scene where he paints it in the sand and it's sort of like, this is sort of this big meaningful thing, and all it is our land. That's not it doesn't. It's like, why would somebody have such a change of viewpoint over that? It seems like very little, but there's a lot more embedded in Tian Sha. So
Yeah, I mean, the main one that comes to mind is that Tian Sha is like all encompassing.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like Broken Sword's way of telling Nameless to consider the bigger picture.
Yeah.
As opposed to our land, it's like, think about like our land, like they're both from Zhao, so are they supposed to be thinking about Zhao? Like, I don't know, it's just a little bit of ambiguity there that I think that the choice of translation doesn't quite capture the meaning properly there, but it's just something I wanted to mention quickly.
So I guess we'll end it there because it's been precisely an hour, and next week we're gonna do House of Flying Daggers, which I of the three, I have to admit that's my favorite one. But so we'll be back on Friday with House of Flying Daggers, and me and Adam will be up this weekend with some more Return of Condor Heroes, and I think we might have a game lab coming up, but I gotta sort that out and find out. And yeah, so we'll be back on, and we'll talk to you later.